If we aren't separate from the world, then we have nothing to offer the world. That and more on this week's episode of Sermon Shorts. Thank you for being here with us today. This past Sunday, in your message, the fourth point of your message, you said the agenda of God is separating. And I wrote down two quotes that you said almost back to back. You said, if we do not live any differently from the world, then we're not living in the will of God. And then right after that, you said, if we aren't separate from the world, we have nothing to offer the world. So we have a clip real quick of something you said right along with that, and
Okay.
Let's watch that together.
But if we're not separate from the world, we have nothing to offer the world. And I'm afraid too many Christians have become more concerned about fitting in with the crowd than they are standing up for the King.
That was probably my personal favorite part of the message from Sunday. And the thought hit me as you were saying that. I was hoping you could share with us today some times that you, maybe in your own personal life, did that, where you lived separately from the world and had something to offer because of that. I was wondering if you could share something with us today.
Yeah, sure. And as we were talking about that, separating, not only based on the scripture we looked at, but on Paul's words when he tells us to come out from among them and be separate. In other words, come out and be distinctly different,
Right.
characterized by God. And of course, that's what the whole idea of separating is about. Not isolating, and that's a very important distinction. We're not
Right.
talking about isolating, but we're talking about being separate. Some point in that message, I also made the statement that if we are not different from the world, we are no different than the world. It's the
Right.
similar side idea. And so we don't have, as the clip showed, we don't have anything to offer them that is different. In my own life, I can think of a couple of experiences. One before I was in ministry, as we call it, vocational ministry. It was when I worked in another industry before God put me in church to serve Him. And I was a believer, and I knew that it was important to whatever you do in word or deed, do all for the glory of God. So I had a commitment that whatever I was working at, I was going to give it my best. And so in this particular industry, I sold orders and then I shipped those orders. So I sold and then I packed those orders. Sometimes I delivered them personally, but most of the time they had to be packed and shipped. And so I would pack, and then I would pack orders by others, and I would get them ready to go. And
Right.
on one particular day, one of the guys who'd been working there for a while came up to me, and he said, "You need to slow down." And I said, "Excuse me?" And he said, "You need to slow down." I said, "Why is that?" And he said, "Because the rest of us don't want to work that fast." And he said, "It's making us look bad." Well, my goal wasn't to make them look bad. In fact, I said, and I told him that. I said, I'm sorry. His name was Steve. And I said, "Steve, I'm sorry." I said, "I'm not trying to make you look bad." I said, "But I'm trying to make Christ look good because I'm a follower of Him, and He wants me to give my best in whatever I do."
Right.
That kind of, I wasn't trying to be Mr. Pharisee at all, but I was trying to say, here's the reason I do that is because of Christ in me.
Yeah.
And so it should distinguish us in whatever we do. People say, well, if you're in ministry like you and I are, well, we expect that. But the fact is, if you're a follower of Christ, there should be a distinct difference, even in how you work in whatever the task or job it is that you have. On another occasion, after I was already the pastor here at Ridgecrest, I'm in my 21st year, so this was probably my third or fourth year, sometime in there. I needed a new pair of dress shoes, and so I went to a local a shoe establishment, and there's some background that needs to be known. There are only about 2 brands of shoes that I can wear and not have foot problems. because I have arthritis in my feet from years of basketball, growing up, and then later, in college and beyond that. And so I only have a couple of brands of shoes, and honestly, they cost more than I'd like to have to pay, to be honest about that. But so I went to get a new pair of dress shoes, and I found another name brand of dress shoe, a highly reputable brand, and I thought, I'm going to try that. It was half the price of what I normally would have to pay,
Sure.
and I thought, man, I'm going to save money. These are good dress shoes, and I can use them. So I bought them, and a couple of days later, I had a funeral, and I thought this is the time to wear these new dress shoes, and so I got them out. I wore them to that funeral, and I have to tell you, by the time that funeral was over, my feet were in trouble because of the arthritis, and so I put them back in the box, took them, put them back in the box. And the next day, I took them back to the shoe store. And I took them to the counter. A lady was there to help. And she said, what can I do for you? I said, I want to ask you a question. Would it be possible for me to exchange these shoes? There's another shoe I should have bought, and it costs more, but I'd like to pay the difference and get those if that's possible, if I can exchange these. She said, well, have you worn them? I said, I wore them one time. There were some light scuffs on the sole, and that was it on the bottom.
Right.
And but everything else was fine. And so I said, yes, ma'am. I told her, and she said, we really can't take them because we can't put them back in stock this way, scuffed up and everything. And she said to me, however, if you could find something wrong with them. If there's something wrong with them, is there something wrong with them? And I thought in that moment, she's trying to, I think probably with good intention, she's trying to help me, but... She said, if there's some, and I thought for a second, and then I said, the only thing that's wrong is that my feet are wrong. I said, the shoes are fine. I said, I just picked the wrong shoe, and I tried something, and it didn't work, and it's not your fault. Or the store's fault, it's my fault. And if you can't take them back, I understand that. I'll just take them and give them to somebody that has a need, but I still need to get the other shoes. And I'll just get them and keep these, give them away. She said, you sure there's not something wrong with them? And she kind of smiled at me, and I said, no, there's nothing wrong with them. I said, I wish I could find something wrong with them. But I said, they're not. And I said, I would be lying if I said there was.
Yeah.
She said, well, let me go talk to my manager. And so she went out, and she came back in a few minutes, and she said, my manager said that we will just eat the shoes. And that you can go and we'll put the cost against whatever pair you're going to buy.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I'm not asking you to do that. She said, no, we'll just eat it. My manager said, we'll just eat it. And then, Bradley, she looked at me and she smiled and she said, I know who you are. She said, because I watch you every Sunday.
Oh, wow.
And in that moment, I have to tell you, inside of me, I didn't do it externally, but inside of me, I went,
I bet.
because I thought, Jesus, thank you for keeping me from compromising and doing something that, I'll be honest, my flesh really wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I said, thank you, inside, Lord. Now, I don't tell you either one of those stories to say, I've failed so many times when I could have stood out because of my relationship with Christ. But I have to tell you, in both of those examples, my mind was, this is about Jesus. It's not even about me.
Absolutely.
And it's about me and my relationship with Jesus. And it's about the world knowing the difference.
Yeah.
And I'm not fussing at the world or people that may say, well, I've kind of done that. And I've had several of those occasions in life. And I don't know if God was testing me. I don't know that God has to test you when you know the right thing to do.
When you know what you're supposed to do.
But doing the right thing then becomes a testimony, and He gets glorified in it. So as believers, it's the little stuff. My wife took something back she had been shopping somewhere, and it was something like a pair of socks or something that somehow had gotten our bag. And my wife realized that they weren't ours. And so she went back to the store, and I think they were like a 79-cent pair of socks.
Yeah.
And it cost her more to drive back to the store, you know. But she went back, and she went to the return counter, and she said, I need to bring these back. She said, we didn't buy these. And somehow they ended up in our bag, and I just need to return these to you. You don't need to do anything. I just wanted to bring them back. And the lady said to her, the lady dropped her mouth open. She said, are you serious?
I bet she'd never seen that before.
And she said, I've never seen anybody do that for something, especially that price. And my wife said, well, I'm a Christian, and I believe that honoring God means I need a clear conscience. And she said, I know we didn't buy these, and we didn't put them in our bag, but we had them, and I wanted to bring them back.
Yeah.
And so that's a little thing, really. By the way, I don't know if you've ever kept a 79-cent pair of socks. I'm not suggesting you're going to hell. That's not.
I haven't. I don't even wear socks.
I know you. I know that would never be an issue for you, but you might have an extra pair of flip-flops that you know you got to hold. But my point is not to try to say super spirituality. My point is to say practically, Bradley, we have a responsibility to show who our God is.
Yeah.
And most of the time, it's going to be in little things. It's not going to be in the big giant things in our life. It's going to be little small things and little small ways that, and by the way, my wife didn't do that, nor did I do that to kind of spiritually strut and say, look at us. We both, in both of those cases, I know she said, I thought at first, is it a big deal even to take these back? And, they didn't think it was a big deal that she brought it back in terms of, oh, really? Know. But they thought it was a big deal when they realized that she did it because she's a follower of Christ. So that's kind of the thing that, in the clip that I'm talking about. We are to be different from the world, and that manifests itself sometimes in just little behaviors out there that we don't even know they're watching, but the world's watching us. And in particular, if they know you're a Christian and you have an opportunity to show them, here's how I handle things in my life. But I'm not doing it to show off. I'm not doing it to be a Pharisee.
Right.
I'm not even doing it to get anybody to pat me on the back. I'm doing it because this is what Christ does in me. Mm-hmm. And little things are just as important.
Yeah, it honors Him.
As the big things in our life. So I'm afraid too often, as the clip said, we just want to fit in instead of stand out for Christ. Mm-hmm. I don't mean show out for Christ. Lord knows we got enough of those. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about in your daily life. Are your values and your convictions consistent with the Lord Jesus Christ? Now, I want to be careful. I didn't just say, mine always are, because I am so mature spiritually. That's a dangerous thing.
Yeah.
Okay. But if you are living differently, or if you're driven by a different agenda, because that message talked about His agenda, His will, then you become sensitive to things that you never were sensitive, and yet the world watches. The world watches.
Man, Brother Ray, thank you so much for that, for just that reminder that we're always being watched.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
My joy.
Man, what a thought from Brother Ray in Sermon Shorts this week. I love that not everything that he said, not all of these examples are these deep, difficult spiritual things. It's just our regular interactions with people everywhere we are. He talked about his job, just going to and from work and how he worked every day. He talked about buying a pair of shoes in a shoe store. It's just normal things. I couldn't help but think about, what about when I'm getting gas at the gas station or buying groceries or something like that. You never know how we treat people, and what we say to them in each and every situation can either be really damaging or it can bring glory and honor to God. So why don't we be intentional about everything that we say and everything that we do? And why don't we ask the Lord every morning to help us be intentional with these things? Thank you so much for watching this week's Sermon Shorts.